Hey, there we go. Adjust that. Hey, how's it going? I'm on a lot later than I expected tonight. I had some duty heads that needed some extra snuggles, and honestly, we're full of jokes tonight, so. And it kind of got away from me because, I mean, what is time, right? What is time? Right, so I hope everything is awesome tonight. I'm gonna kind of dig right into reading because there wasn't too much that I was really thinking about in relation to the last read. I kind of got all of that out in the rambles yesterday for episode 3, so I'm still so obsessed with this candle. If you can hear it like crackling. It has one of those those wooden wicks, so it makes this awesome crackle sound when it burns, and it's one of my favorite things right now. I keep wanting to call it spruce and timber. It's summit and terrace candle. So yeah, super yummy. In any case, we're going into chapter 5 today. It tastes kind of weird. Normally I do lemon water or lemon with honey in my water. And today I did grapefruit and honey, and it tastes like apple juice. Which for some reason is so gross to me. I think apple juice is one of the grossest juices. It reminds me of I don't know, grade school and daycare and sticky hands. That's always been a trigger point for me. Sticky hands are one of the most disgusting things in the entire world. And sticky doorknobs, sticky tables, and the smell of apple juice. Blech. Blech. And it's whenever I have anything that tastes like apple juice or have apple juice, I'm instantly transported back to being I don't know, 5. Blech. Anyways, so notifications. Anyways, so the Sprit of Intimacy, we are going into chapter 5 today, entitled Born to a Purpose. Starting out quiet like I always do. I'm sure my volume will increase once something gets all under my, I don't know, I can't think of a little idiom. Is idiom? A little saying or cliche for that. Once something kind of gets me fired up, I'll probably get a little louder. But still kind of burning off the effects of all that cake from the other day and the significantly smaller slice that I had today, because a pretty good sized cake. So I'm all kingesty, I guess. Not kingesty. I don't want to say mucusy. That's just really gross. But, I mean, inflammation response. So, in any case. Chapter 5. Born to a purpose. When two people are married and have built an intimate relationship, there is a desire that they make themselves available for other souls to come through. That they create a safe and sacred space for spirits who want to bring their gifts and fulfill their purpose. And so people in our village would say that children do not belong completely to the parents who gave them birth. They have used their parents' bodies to come through, but they belong to the community and to the spirit. Each person chooses her or his life purpose before he or she is even born. I, for example, chose to work with the great mysteries, to explore the unknown, to let myself be swallowed by the mysteries so that others might learn. And I made the commitment to travel outside of the village someday so that others might see into the unknown and remember the old rituals. Now, how is one's purpose learned? When a woman is pregnant, a hearing ritual is performed. In this ritual, elders will ask the unborn child, "Who are you? Why are you coming here? Why do you bother? This world is too messed up. What can we do to ease your journey?" The baby takes over the mother's voice and speaks back. "This is who I am. I am coming to help uphold the knowledge of the ancestors," or "I am coming to do this and this." And based on that information, the elders will prepare an appropriate ritual space in which to receive the child and make sure that everything is ready here before the child is born. After the birth, the elders make sure they surround the child with things that will help her remember and accomplish the purpose she has described. And when she reaches adolescence and goes through initiation, she has to go back to the time before she was born to remember what she said. This is because growing up is a process of forgetting. This body, as the elders say, takes away certain things from us as we grow. Up until the age of 5 or 6, children remember things perfectly. But after that, something starts to happen in the body that makes them forget. So I absolutely love this sentiment, and I believe it 100%. As far as kids are concerned, each child, I do believe, 100% has their personality and their traits kind of ingrained before they come here. And I would love, if I'm blessed enough to have another kid or two, to be able to experience a ritual in which they actually ask the child what their purpose is. As far as my experience with this, back to like the fish dreams and the baby dreams from the end of the Alchemist series. When I was pregnant with each of my kids, it felt like my body was, this is going to sound wild, but was taken over in a sense there were aspects of my personality that were greatly amplified, and some that stuck around even afterwards. I'd say one of the strangest things is for both of my kids, I got a patch of hair that completely like changed texture, which is so weird. It's so strange. And it changed to my kids' hair texture, like this just like little small area on either side. You know, it was the first sign of like my body being taken over by these kiddos. With my daughter, the dream that I had of her was of us standing in this like desert area, this canyon, and I could feel the wind of the canyon in the dream. And my daughter, she looked like she was, I don't know, like early teen years. And I saw her face as it's kind of growing into now, as, you know, she's getting closer to those tween years. But I remember her hair kind of blowing in the wind, and she was staring off into space. And it's if I was standing right in front of her, and I could see her eyes. I could see exactly what she looked like. I could see her, and my voice was off in the distance, and I heard me say her name exactly the way that I say it now, which is so weird. You know how everyone says their kids' names a certain way. It's like they say it different than other people. And she turned to the side, and then I woke up, and that's when I got that feeling like, oh my gosh, that's my daughter. And when she was born, it was so funny. She looked so very different than what the dream looked like, you know? So, of course, when, you know, you're having it, not of course, but the people that I was around, you know, because I was having a baby that's, you know, multiple ethnicities, they would say, well, what do you think she's going to look like? Because everyone wants to know what the mixed kids are going to look like, I suppose. Like, it's an obsession for some people. And I would always say the same thing. I'd say, she's going to have long, light brown hair with blonde tips or highlights in it, because that's what it looked like. It was almost like balayage, like kind of bleached from the sun a little bit. And I said, she's going to have long hair, you know, kind of wavy, kind of curly, and she's going to have skin that looks like almost like golden caramel, freckles, small, tiny little freckles across her face, and eyes that look like the universe. When she was born, she was pale as hell. Pale as hell. Her hair was completely straight and the blackest black that you could have ever seen. And her eyes were this super dark navy blue. And then everyone was like, you're wrong. You're wrong. I said, nope, trust me. She's gonna have golden brown skin, you know, light tan golden brown skin, freckles, light brown hair with little golden tips, highlights through it, and eyes that look like the universe. And as she got older, her hair texture, color changed. Her eyes morphed into this amazing, like, hazily color with the little speckles, because the only way that I could describe it is like the universe, right? The little speckles, all the little planets and the different colors, they look like a nebula. It's really beautiful. And she just started within the past like year or so starting to get tiny little freckles on her face. She looks exactly like she did in the dream. But throughout this pregnancy, I was very much like super hippie, like nature chick, right? I felt like a fairy. I was like, pork just absolutely made me sick. Could not stand pork. One of my favorite things in the world was pulled pork for a super long time. And I couldn't eat it anymore. It was just absolutely disgusting. And I always wanted to go outside, be barefoot, hang out in the park. And that is 100% her. With my son, on the other hand, the dream that I had of him, it was, right, I had two. One of them was of him as a baby, and it wouldn't let me see his face. I understand why. But, oh gosh, I forgot about the secret twin dream. That's another one. I'll have to tell that another time. But he, in this dream, oh my gosh, that was the first one I had of him, was the secret. I completely forgot about that dream. But, yeah, it was me, Ava, another small child, another small little girl, and I was carrying, right, this like grown man-sized person, and they were wearing a suit. It was a black like slim cut suit with a white shirt underneath and white socks and black shoes, and they had hair like a beetle, like not like a bug, like a beetle, like John Paul, George, and Ringo beetle. They had a Beatles haircut. And when I took the test, I was like, oh, that's what that meant, because I was carrying this person that reminded me of a musician. And it's crazy. Like, my son is an absolute audiophile. He loves music, loves to dance, very much a performer, like a Beatle. And when I was pregnant with him, I shaved my head into a mohawk. I was always wearing like red lipstick and heels and like this blush, and all I wanted to listen to, like, I was literally like obsessed. Like, Drag Race is fantastic, but I was obsessed with Drag Race. All I wanted to do was see people perform, and I was listening to like so much like nasty girl rap and like club music when I was pregnant with him. Like Brooke Candy, oh my god, Brooke Candy was like my fave the entire time I was pregnant with him. And now as a child, like, this dude is hilarious, and he'll, you know, like, we'll just be sitting around the house. We have dance parties all the time because he loves dancing, and he'll just bust out and start like break dancing out of absolutely nowhere. He loves Cirque du Soleil, is up. When I say he is like cannot get enough of Prince and David Bowie, it's just wild. Like, my daughter was always very much into like Stevie Nicks. Like, I used to play Landslide because it would always put her to sleep. So I would play Landslide to help her go to sleep. But he has like Prince, Michael Jackson, Skrillex, David Bowie, and one of the songs that would not stop playing in my head was Starman. I would play Starman all the time. The weirdest thing is his first 3 words, bubble was his first word, bubble. And then star, dar, he would always star and kiss. I never really drew that connection. Starman was always playing. Star was one of his first 3 words. Kiss, also a Prince song, crazy. And then my daughter's 3 words were fucking wild. But in any case, I very much believe that children know who they are and their personalities before they're born. And I feel like with some, mothers, if you are kind of intuitive, the way that the child kind of takes over your personality really says a lot about who they're going to kind of morph into. And seeing their interests as they get older, it's becoming more and more apparent that those feelings were very true to who they were. With, no type of coercion. I always say, do what you do, right? Choose your favorite shoes. We go to the shoe store. I say, which pair do you like? And just let them go and grab them, no matter like what color they are or whatever. Today we're buying tennis shoes. Choose tennis shoes. And they always kind of choose things that are in alignment with those personalities that they had before they were born. But let's continue on. At the hearing ritual, the baby might choose a stone and give a description of what the stone will look like. The elders will go out and locate the stone by the way it moves or behaves. And that stone basically contains all the information about the person. It is through this stone, sitting back in the medicine room in my village, that the elders can monitor what's happening with me here right now. When we come together with another person, we create a foundation that allows us to fulfill the life purpose with which we were born. Our partner, if chosen well, will have been born to a purpose along the same path. If our purpose and that of our partner are in conflict, then it is felt at a personal and communal level. We feel it in our intimate lives. Take, for instance, a peacemaker and someone who is the source of a nuclear war. Their life purposes take them on 2 completely separate roads. They do not have anything in common. They have no ground to uphold their intimate connection. That's like making my heart tingle right now. Yikes. Each of us born into one of the 5 Dagara elemental groups. Each of us is born into one of the 5 Dagara elemental groups. This element shapes our purpose in life and can play a role in the selection of a partner. One's element is determined by one's birth year. There are nature years, water years, fire years, mineral years, and earth years. People choose before birth to come in a certain year in order to fulfill their life purpose. My element is nature. If your birth year ends in a 0 or 5, that is, you might be born in 1950 or 1965, you are an earth person. If it ends in 1 or 6, you are a water baby. 2 and 7 are fire. 3 and 8 are nature. 4 and 9 are mineral. Even though you start from one given element, You have to contain all 5 in order to be able to function. And when you are lacking in one element, it can show. These numbers might seem arbitrary to many people in the West, but they were not determined randomly. They have their roots in a deep understanding of the universe. Each number carries an energy which affects us regardless of our background. That's so curious. Makes me think of doshas in a Ayurvedic principle. That's something that I really gotta sit down with, is comparing this number system to Ayurvedic dosha, and even that to human design, and kind of cross-referencing to see if they all say the same thing, or Chinese astrology. I'm super curious now if that's another one of those things where even though we have different systems, everything leads back to the same because we were all written by the same hand, to quote The Alchemist, yeah? I always like to go as far back as birth and the manner in which a person was welcomed as a newborn in order to see if that influences the kind of relationship that person ends up having. Birth is the arrival of somebody from another place. The person who is arriving must be welcomed, must be made to feel that she has arrived in a place where there are human beings who will receive her gifts. The absence of a welcoming village around a newborn may inadvertently erase something in the psyche. That loss, later on in life, will be felt like a huge gap. Although this person will feel a strong need to connect with others, he may have difficulty reaching out for support from a community he fears might reject him. What would this person be seeking when he enters into an intimate relationship, if not to bridge that gap? But a problem arises when he realizes that his partner alone cannot bridge such a gap. It takes an entire community to do that. And so although that person enters into a relationship in order to satisfy his need for a community, it doesn't work. One person cannot fulfill all his needs, cannot make up for a lack of community that has been felt since birth. Excuse me. It is normal and even necessary that the arrival of a newborn being a change in the relationship, it is normal and even necessary that the arrival of a newborn bring change in the relationship of the parents. As mothers, we have to build an intimate relationship with the baby while it is still in the womb and continue to nourish this relationship after birth. It is the responsibility of the father to develop a relationship with the child also. Unless both parents are closely tied to the child and, along with that, keep their relationship between each other healthy, somebody will feel left out. After the arrival of a child, or even before its birth, a ritual should be done involving spirit and the community, welcoming the baby into the family, acknowledging the new spirit that has come, and affirming the parents' commitment to the child and to each other. Chapter 6, Initiation and Gaining Knowledge. In our village, children learn about intimacy and ritual from birth onward. As they mature, it becomes crucial that they develop a profound understanding of these matters. At initiation, elders guide the young deeper into intimacy, sexuality, and ritual so that they know what is awaiting them. They do not just wander into the unknown territory of adulthood and get wounded. Initiation for women takes place after the first menstrual period. It is performed once a year between December and February. If, for instance, you get your period in March, You will have to wait until the next initiation in order to go through initiation. For a man, initiation is done at puberty, when he starts to show signs of wanting to be an adult, when the hormones start to kick in. During initiation, you learn about many things. Sex and intimacy are just part of the teachings. Even after initiation, there is a long period of mentoring. If you think there is something you are not grasping, you can always turn to an elder. Intimacy is a sacred thing and should not be messed with. There is high danger in it. When you jump into it with your eyes closed, you can get easily hurt. That's why this mentoring is so important. It helps you avoid acting on illusory knowledge. I was just saying that to a friend the other day. We were talking about divorce, and he's going through his second divorce. This time from a longer-term partner. And one of the things that kind of got brought up in our conversation was that if we would have known all of the things that we know now when it comes to dating, you know, as far as like the boundaries and things like that, instead of just kind of being left to the wolves and jumping into it as teens and young adults, we would have been way better off. Because I feel like for both of us, and honestly for a lot of people I know that have been going through separations and divorces, that was honestly like our trial period. Marrying for the wrong reasons, or marrying the wrong person, or staying for way too long, or making mistakes during dating. And it's just so wild how so many of us go into intimacy very blindly, when, you know, even having things not spoken about when we get to like that age, you know, parents not really talking about relationships, or not having the time to talk about relationships and expectations, and that it's okay, you know, to be selective and choose someone based on more than just like they're cute, or they have a nice body, or they pay attention to me, or whatever, you know? In initiation, one important lesson is learning how to build an intimate connection with spirit, the self, and others. For the Westerner, the question is usually, how do you build a relationship with yourself, with another, or with spirit, for that matter? In my own case, I had to learn to let go of my defenses and any need for control. I had to trust spirit absolutely for guidance. But you know, many things are easier said than done, especially when we are anxious. I remember many times when I would spit and scream and yell at spirit when I felt frustrated. But this is to be expected. It's all part of the learning process. I particularly enjoyed the frankness and openness between the youth and adults, especially the elders. They did not hide anything from us. They talked to us about their own experiences, the kinds of difficulties they encountered in their own intimate lives, and how they were able to overcome them. In initiation, we looked at the connection that women have with their cycles and the moon. This discussion opened something infinite in me. Many of the civilized countries of the world, including some African countries, look at the menstruating women with some discomfort. People ignore the sacredness of menstruation. They do not understand how valuable it is for a woman to have her period. Yet, the flow of the menstrual blood carries power. It is a powerful time for the mooning woman. She carries healing energy within her and has tremendous ability to heal and see into things. In my village, people will seek help from such a woman. They will treat her with great respect. Women do rituals for an individual who is having her period. There is also the need for someone to contain the space for the mooning woman, as she could be channeling energies from different sources. Rituals take whatever form the menstruating woman chooses. Some women will say, I want to be carried to this place in the village and have people sing and dance and rock me. They have no restrictions. Both men and women can be involved in these rituals, though they often involve only women. The woman having her period can ask them to do whatever she wants. Okay, must be nice. Honestly, all I would want on my period would be for somebody to sing with me and dance with me and like rock me like a baby. Oh, carry me into the middle of the village and just rock me. Honestly, that makes me so happy just thinking about it. That makes me so happy just thinking about it. Rock me, like, I feel like I want to be like rocked right now. Like, just the idea of that is just absolutely fantastic. This actually brings something up that I have heard about but never really looked into. It was some weird like YouTube documentary thing that was talking about the phenomena of like young girls that when they got their period, right, like at that time of puberty, were, I don't even know the term for it. It was a while ago that I saw this, but they're like, they have symptoms, like, it'll be like there's a poltergeist in the house. Like, stuff will start getting like knocked over or like doors open and shut. There's like an eerie feeling because when they kind of are getting into that transition of, you know, getting their period and becoming a woman, if they are already intuitive, it will kind of amplify that, and it like kind of like calls the spirits in and starts causing these super strange phenomena to happen around the house. That actually, I need to put a pin in that so that I can look more into it or see if I can find more information about that. But that's just something that I saw in passing. And it's so crazy to have that brought back up. It's so wild. Anyways, so during menstruation, sacred sexuality can happen with a woman depending on the kind of energy that exists between partners. The man must work at raising his energy to match that of the woman. If not, he could suffer from such an encounter. He could become disempowered. One elder pointed out that the risk is similar to sharing an intimate space before working on your anger. Your anger will transfer to the other person and backfire on you. This made sense to me. I then understood why the elders insist on the need to clear a ritual space before doing anything intimate. People who think that in this context they can get power from a partner without being established in their own power are fooling themselves. Gosh, I need to mark this page. This brings up so many things that I want to learn more about or have heard things of in the past. it's like the whole, I'm going to call it a superstition, but the hoodoo superstition of not eating spaghetti at a woman's house, or the idea that intimacy creates a bond between two people, and like trauma dumping is actually a thing, like creating soul ties or cords that need to be cut through intimate relations. And honestly, believe it 100%, 110%. Like, there are certain bonds, certain cords, certain connections that are created and can cause, obsession, can basically like transfer those feelings of like malaise between one partner and another. I feel like I could go on for days with this. I'm gonna just get back to it. Throughout the initiation, we noticed the reoccurrence of the number 4 in different situations. When asked, the elders explained that 4 was the symbol of the woman. One elder gave a very complicated explanation for this, then added that women also have 4 lips. I felt a sense of recognition, and as though someone had just woken me up. I realized that on the day I had first menstrual blood, I was given a 4-legged stool. I was told the meaning of it at the time, and that a man would not use it if I did not give him permission to do so. But the excitement of becoming a woman clouded my ability to listen. We went on exploring more of the mysterious dimensions of women. We talked about what Westerners would call our private parts, and shared our deepest feelings and thoughts. We learned about the ash circle of intimacy and how to uphold this sacred space. By the end of the session, I felt as though I had eaten something so filling that it would take me forever to digest it. After initiation, I had to face up to the purpose I had chosen and declared before I came into this world. I was reluctant to do certain things and realized that to promise to do something before being born does not necessarily mean having the courage or the willingness to do it. The idea of leaving the village especially did not appeal to me at all. I wanted someone to delete that part of my life purpose. Until that point, I had been quite happy with my life in the village. I had hoped that the mentoring sessions that followed initiation would help me out of this dilemma. I was disappointed then to discover that nobody took the step to say, you don't have to do it. I realized that there were difficulties involved with pursuing one's life purpose. After initiation, the elders start to look for the person you will marry. While you are being mentored, somewhere between the ages of 16 and 20, marriages happen. Gosh, that's a good one. This next chapter about marriage is a little long. Let's take a look at what time I'm at here. 44:34? 44. There we go. So, I guess I'll go ahead and dig into chapter 7, which will be nice. Chapter 7 is entitled Marriage, 2 Worlds Together. Back to that life purpose again. All right, moving on. Chapter 7. Marriage, 2 worlds together. Marriage is a way of taking the call of the spirit further. It brings two souls, two purposes, two worlds together, and allows them to bring their gifts forward to benefit the community. Marriage is a way for spirit to bring its support for two people into one greater energy. It brings together two or many lines of ancestors, two cultures, and many different ways of looking at the world. This just brings me back to thinking about that conversation with myself and my friend. If I would have actually studied, paid attention, or even thought about relationships at this deep and this sacred of a level, or had some type of mentoring, around that time of initiation or kind of growing from child into young woman, I feel like so many missteps would have been avoided in those early relationships. It's funny how a lot of us just kind of go into things blind and think of everything. Think that pairing is so random. It's as if in the village they tap into this invisible string. That red string theory, to ensure that a couple is equally yoked before they continue on that journey toward marriage, which is beautiful, supportive, just absolutely amazing. And here we are, swiping on Tinder. Just trying to find someone that likes the same taste in music as us and wants to hike, right? When there could be a person that's literally being drawn to you by the universe, or could be divine through going to someone who has a deep connection to spirit, or by working through the community, or even listening to readers or spiritual mentors. It's wild, right? I still 100% believe that when you find your person, there's a spark there, but to actually have criteria, legit spiritual criteria, what even is that, right? Marriage is two souls coming into one soul, still distinct but forming one entity. It is a way of bringing two people's gifts together in order to strengthen them and make them even better. It acknowledges that two people are embarking on something that is bigger than them and bigger than the tribe. Marriage is a communion with all the spirit allies. It is a communion with all the gifts that two people or more are bringing together. It is a communion of the things that are at the very core of the soul. Marriage is a renewal of vows for those who have already married. It's a way of family coming together, a way of tribes coming together, and it's an opportunity to celebrate the call that two souls or spirits heard and answered. When we come together as a couple, we bring two worlds together. In order to open our world to the other person, we must go through spirit. Ignoring spirit and making your marriage a private thing that is just between two individuals will bring a lot of disappointment. In the indigenous context of Africa, the concept that each one of us comes into this world for a purpose determines who you eventually enter into a relationship with. Certain purposes are more or less similar. Some are very much alike. This is where you go and look for a possibility of a relationship. Selecting a partner is the business of the elders, who, because they know everybody in the village, know everyone's purpose, and are best equipped to understand who can go with whom within the community. This requires a great deal of trust and places a lot of burden on the elders. If a marriage doesn't work, they have to figure out a way to correct it through ritual. Elders take several factors into account when making arrangements for the young initiate to marry. Marriages are not arranged randomly. If, for instance, they were to put two people together whose purposes clash, they would murder each other. The elders have to see that your energies are compatible, that you can live with each other in harmony, and that your life purposes are on the same road. In addition to that, the elders must divine on the subject to make sure that what they are proposing is meant to work. They will present the matter to Spirit and do a ritual to confirm and seal Spirit's approval. Then they will inform the villages and the individuals involved in the process, the bride and groom. I had just completed the full cycle of initiation at the age of 16 when I was called into the circle of the elders, and I was quite surprised. One can never guess why the elders call one into their circle, but one thing is sure, their cooking pot always has something boiling in it. At any rate, when I got there, they said, well, we have this son who lives in the West, and we need somebody who can keep him company. My answer was, what does that have to do with me? Oh, she's so spicy. I love it. And their response was, you see, you are the kind of person who can get along with him. We would like you to marry him. I said, well, isn't there anybody else in the village who can get along with him? My ambivalence about leaving the village led me to a state of confusion, which in turn confused the elders, who did not know what to tell me. The only thing they said was, your life purpose, Sobonfu, is on the same road as his. We're not trying to force you to marry somebody because we know that being far away from home is very difficult. If he lived somewhere around here, we wouldn't have even called you here. We wouldn't have had this meeting and given you a choice. You would have simply been notified. So I said, how am I going to live far away and be able to survive without my family and without everybody else? And they said, you are going to be taken care of. You just need to give us your yes, and then everything will be fine. And I said, well, I can't give you my answer right now because I don't know what I'm dealing with. So they said, well, you have some time. Go think about it and come back and tell us what you think. Ooh, it's one of those trust in the universe moments, eh? I thought about it for 3 months. First, I went to my parents and said, what do you think I should do? They said, no, you can't ask us. We are too attached to this issue to give you good advice. My grandmother had just passed away, and she had been my main counselor. After a month, I went to my other grandmothers, and they said that they too were too attached to give me any kind of advice. I really wish that more parents or people close were able to recognize that and say, I'm a little too close to give you advice, because they knew that their judgment would be clouded by what they actually wanted versus what the zoomed out kind of best issue would be. I love that. And so I spent some time around my grandmother's grave. One night, as I was sitting on her grave, these words came to me. Don't worry. Just say yes, and you'll see that everything will be fine. And so the next day I woke up and I went to the elders and said yes. They were quite relieved, and they said, we'll start everything and the wedding will be on its way. I didn't know Malidoma, my future husband, but I knew his family. He was the only person in his family that I didn't know. So the wedding came when I was 20, and since in the village you do not need to be at your wedding, Malidoma wasn't there. He was notified by mail afterward. Oh, I love it. I love it. Malidoma had been sent to the West by the elders to teach their wisdom and to become, as his name describes, a friend of the stranger. He had studied first at the University of Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, and then at the Sorbonne in France, after which he ended up in America. At the time of our wedding, he was in America at Brandeis University in Massachusetts. Isn't that so nice about how her life purpose was to go and teach the old ways to people that had forgotten or didn't know, and his purpose, even through his name, was to be a friend of the stranger and to teach his wisdom. So their life purposes did align, even by the simple statement recounted of you will get along with him. That said so much more than the actual words, that they were on the same life path, that they were both outside of the village, essentially on a mission, and it seems like both of them, were destined to be and ordained by Spirit. That's that kingdom spouse energy, I suppose. But Malidoma saved enough money to buy himself a ticket, and a year later he came home and we met. We were introduced as a couple. We didn't know each other, and we wondered how in the world we were going to make anything happen. Now, one of the things that I had learned from the elders in initiation was how to create a sacred space and how to build an intimate relationship in that space. As Malidoma and I spent time together, we started to work on that issue. In the village, women and men do not sleep together, though they share the same compound. Women sleep in their quarters and men sleep in their quarters, and that is because in order to bring their strength to society, they need to empower one another. They need to bring one another's best out so that whenever a woman goes out to meet with the man, there isn't an imbalance created. The first thing that people want to know when they hear of this sleeping arrangement is how a couple manages to get together. I tell them that as long as they keep their creativity and imagination alive, they will figure it out. Malidoma came home, and at the time I was sleeping with his mother. His mother and I used to share the same bed. You can understand how frustrating the idea of being married to a woman who sleeps with your mother can be to the Western mind. For me, what was harder was being in a sacred space with Malidoma, someone that I didn't know. There was something strange about it, so I surrendered to spirits, letting them figure it out. All I needed to do when I felt frustrated was to create a sacred space. That's so interesting that one of the I don't want to call it a personality, I guess a personality trait. One of the personality traits that she needed to kind of let go of was the need for control, as mentioned earlier. So having this husband that she was not used to or hadn't met before, learning how to create the sacred space and surrender to her, new husband and figure out the sacred space and step out of that comfort zone. It seems like those were all plot points that were created for her before she was born, which is interesting. Overcoming that control. I need to make some notes for myself, like for real. I feel like that's one of my plot points too. The way we created a sacred space in the village was just by using ash to make a circle. You bring an earthen pot full of water and you put it in the middle of the circle. Whoever starts the ritual will sit and wait for the other person to come. When the other person gets there, then you do an invocation. And as you invoke the spirit, something inside automatically unlocks itself. Maladoma and I were strangers to each other, but each time we met in that space, it was as if we had known each other forever. That's so interesting. That when in opening up and invoking spirit, they were kind of able to dip into that universal thing that tied them together, even though in their kind of conscious lives, it seemed as if they were complete strangers. In an indigenous context, because you don't follow romance as a guide to marriage, partners know the true identity of the other. You know the strengths and the weaknesses of the person you are going to marry. That way, you won't wonder 10 years down the road whether you married the right person or their ghost. People think that when they say yes once, it means yes forever. But in the indigenous context, no. That's why you have to constantly renew your vows. Whether it's once a year or whether somebody else is getting married. If a couple renew their vow at least once a year and also are able to do ritual constantly to strengthen their connection to spirit and acknowledge each other's spirit, their marriage will never degenerate into weakness. In the Dagara community, marriage is not a private matter. It is not just two individuals getting married. In fact, when a couple gets married, they create an occasion for the other people to renew their vows and get married once again at the same time. Sharing the wedding is a way of enlisting support for when problems start to hit. In the West, although everybody likes going to weddings, once you call somebody and say that trouble is hit, nobody wants to show up. But in the kind of community I'm talking about, once people have shared in a couple's marriage vow, they are going to be involved in whatever is happening. When trouble hits, they will be the first ones to show up. Marriage is two or more tribes, two villages, or at the least, two families coming together. The two people who actually join in a marriage are almost, in this grand scale, a minor incident. And so I have a strong sense that two people who come together do so not only to affirm their desire to uphold a certain tradition of community, but also because they need this relationship as an icon, a smaller piece of a much bigger sense of connectedness in their life. Let me put it differently. I fell in love with my husband, after we got married. What was important in the process was the realization that he was married not to someone named Sobonfu alone, but to a whole ethnic group, a whole family, and a whole village, and that I, in the middle of that, was of course important, but my importance rested in the grander scale of the community that brought him to me. It made me realize that I could not personalize my relationship with him because it's not an I relationship, it's a we relationship. And the we is not limited to two people, but is extended to a whole village. By voicing their commitment to marriage, a couple voices a commitment to spirit, a commitment to the self, to the other person, and to the community at large. The community, by being there and taking their vow, is doing the same. So it's mutual. A wedding is an opportunity, an obligation almost, for everyone to reaffirm relationships with one another, with the ancestors, with all the things around. So the wedding is not just a matter between two people, but an event with a purpose for everyone in the village. Before a wedding in the village, the people who have gone through initiation with the bride and groom give the couple their blessing and their encouragement. The elders also come and give their blessing. They will add that they have traveled this same route and that it wasn't all smooth, that there are bumps along the road, and that this is okay. Hearing from the elders that the intimacy road is not paved with pearls and gold and that you have to constantly work at it helped remove Oh my gosh, it is so windy outside right now. There's this bush that is literally like scratching at the window right now. I've never seen the wind so hard that it causes this bush that's like, I don't know, generally about 4 to 6 inches away from my window to like lean over and scratch it. It's like, in any case, I'm going to read this again. I really enjoy this sentence. Hearing from the elders that the intimacy road is not paved with pearls and gold, and that you have to constantly work at it, helped remove unrealistic expectations from our marriage basket. In our culture, in order for a couple to get married, there are a multitude of rituals that must be done. After the Spirit's approval of the union, for instance, there is the transfer of the two souls ritual. There is another ritual that brings the two souls together. And there is a ritual that unites the purposes of the two people. Because when you marry, there is a purpose in life that you will share. So however hard it may be to imagine someone not being at his own wedding, it works because the whole wedding is focused on spirit and ritual. If you have some object belonging to and representing the absent person, then his spirit can be brought into the ritual. It is actually there. After the long wedding celebration, there is a welcoming ritual that functions as a bridge to incorporate the bride into the groom's family. Then usually, one doesn't immediately spend time with her spouse. There's no honeymoon. Some of the bride's family members will stay with her to make sure she is integrating well into her new home. And the women of her new family will spend time with her and welcome her into a new women's circle, where from now on, she will be taken care of and given all the support she needs. In Africa, gifts are exchanged before the marriage. This aspect of African culture is usually misunderstood in the West. Many people see it as selling of the bride. It may have become so in various parts of the continent under the influence of the West and modernity. In those places where people are desperate for material goods and have lost their connection to spirit and ritual, because their ancestors did something they no longer understand, some people try to take advantage of it however they can. But in Dagara practice, you cannot afford to take such an advantage. Using a family member's marriage gift for personal gain brings death to the family. Some people have tried it and learned the hard way before dying. During my most recent trip home, the village was upset by the death of a young man who tried to sell the cow that was given for his sister's soul transfer ritual. When he found out that he had been caught by the ancestors, he called everybody to confess what he had done in an attempt to redeem himself. But it was too late. He said that whenever he looked around, he saw himself being beckoned by his own ghost. No one could have imagined that such an adored young man could have been tempted in this way. It was not that he was ignorant of the danger, but the temptation of a trip to a city in the Ivory Coast just clouded his ability to see and feel his responsibilities. When a woman marries, although she keeps her family name and passes it over to her children, she moves to her husband's family. We are thus matrilineal and patrilocal. Patrilocal. In order for the bride to leave her house, her soul has to be transferred from her family to her husband's. This is done by a giveaway. It makes me think of like a giant wheel. Or like tag 3 friends. I know it's not, but my brain is silly sometimes. By a giveaway, a sacrifice of a cow. The cow is given by the husband's family to the family of the bride. Without this transferring of the soul ritual, the woman usually finds it is hard to stay in her new family. Her spirit will long to go back to the place where it feels at home. When the bride's family receives the cow, it is slaughtered, then left on the roof of the family compound as an offering to spirit. It has to be left out for at least one night for the spirit to come and feast on it, and nobody shall eat a piece until the spirit has been satisfied. So the spirit will come and inspect what it has been given and decide whether it is satisfied with the ritual. If not, on the next day you will find that the meat is inedible. This means that the sacrifice was not done properly. But if you go the next day and you find that it's okay, you know that it's good and that spirit has feasted on it, and then everybody else may feast on it. The meat is first shared among everybody in the bride's family, then some of it is taken to the husband's family. It's their responsibility to share with their village. Now, after the soul has been transferred from one house to another, there is another ritual that has to be done in order to bring the two souls together. All the family members come together. There is an invocation calling the spirits to come and oversee this union. And if there's any obstacle, the spirits are asked to clear the path for the couple, to give them their blessing and an extra eye to see, to help them with their day-to-day life. A pot made for the occasion is brought out, and the birthstones of the bride and groom are put together in it. These are the stones that were picked by them during the hearing rituals done before their birth. In addition, 2 pots containing each person's medicine are blessed. That's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Then everybody present offers a prayer for the couple, and afterward they put the water in the pot with the stones. Sometimes they put additional things, such as seeds, and roots in it. Then the pot is taken to the husband's family shrine. It will remain there for the rest of the couple's lives. Back in the village, these two stones are together in the medicine room for the marriage of Malidoma and me. When one of us, oh my God, why is this so sad to me right now? When one of us dies, a ritual of separation will allow the stones to be taken out of the pot, and the stone of the deceased person will then be placed in or on top of the grave. There are some of the rituals associated with marriage. These are some of the rituals that are associated with marriage in our culture. There are many, many more. When people say that they get married in order to have children, the statement is too limited. It does not take into account that the two spirits who have come together have their own higher purposes. If a couple is married only in order to have children, they risk failing to fulfill their own purposes, and this failure is transferred to the child. What I mean by this is that if two people who are married do not acknowledge that they have a higher purpose to fulfill and limit their marriage to just having children, they put their purpose to sleep. When the children finally arrive, the parents realize that there is something that they haven't been able to fulfill, and they hope their children will fulfill it for them. Living vicariously through children. The pots, this puts all expectations of the parents onto the child, and it doesn't give the child a chance to actually take his own purpose into his own hands. Parents who think their sole purpose is to have children often have a hard time staying together after their children leave home. Gosh, how many of us are alive or were raised with the expectation that we were going to be either our parents' accessory or do all the things that they wanted to do in their life, all their life purposes that they gave up on, huh? Yowza. In our village, polygamy is allowed. It is not viewed as adultery because it is not hidden and is only done with the approval of the wife. It is up to the woman to choose whether she wants another woman in her household. A second wife is wed into the family just as any other marriage. Many women choose this in order to bring more female energy to the house and make it lively. My aunt chose to have several other women with her. It's not seen as perverted. It's the action of a woman who feels happy in her relationship and wants to bring other women to share that happiness with her. Sometimes a man will say no to multiple wives when he knows he would be unable to sustain intimacy with more than one woman. To keep a marriage healthy, the first thing is to honor the relationship itself. Come to it as something led by spirit. The next step is to acknowledge each other's soul. Acknowledging each other is not just as human beings, but as spirits who have chosen a body to come into. Then, through ritual, bring these two souls together. Perhaps couples in the West could use meaningful things they have had since childhood, objects that have become sacred to them. With the presence of relatives or friends, bring those two sacred objects together in a pot or basket. Then keep them in a space reserved as a shrine. It can be kept in the bedroom or somewhere in the house where both can have access to it. You can use that special place to draw energy from, especially when things become hard. You can go back to that source, access the time before the problems came, and really draw energy from that. That was nice. That was nice. I really like that. the segments today. This brings us to chapter 8, Intimacy in the Ash Circle, and that's where I will pick up tomorrow night. I'm going to try my best to get everything squared away so I can start this bedtime story, The Spirit of Intimacy, at, I'll say 9:30 just to be safe. But honestly, if my duty heads need more hugs, then, I mean, who am I to say no, right? It was absolutely wonderful reading and adding my own commentary for The Spirit of Intimacy with you here tonight. And for the next 24 hours, I'm going to be doing a lot of comparing and contrasting, because I am someone who has been married before, had many friends who have been married, between 1 and 3 times, and even those who have just recently gotten married. It'll be very interesting to think about the marriage dynamics, the success, lack of success, or strife that has been brought on by having a marriage that is deeply rooted in the community, or essentially just 2 people as an island trying to make something work. Thinking about life purposes, soul purpose, and how that relates to the success or lack thereof in a relationship. And honestly, what I want to do the next time around. I feel like really thinking about these things is something that wasn't really given as much gravity as needed. And the love is a beautiful thing, and I feel like you know love when you see it. If you don't really think about the constant recommitment that is necessary in order to make a relationship successful. I feel like that's one of the reasons that some of us can really lose out on that love, that gift, that divine counterpart that has been gifted to us by the universe, that we've been tied to energetically for so long without even knowing. In any case, I love y'all so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow sometime between 9:30 and 10:15. All right. I love you. Bye.